I want to go a little bit practical again. So in the specifically South African context, with our unemployment fact or reality, knowing what you know, what you've seen so far, what we said earlier is I don't want to talk about it, that's going to take everybody's jobs, but can it create jobs better than the political parties? Can it actually do that? Because that's what we wanted to do. If it's such a powerful product or technology, how can our listeners use it in a way that actually grows the economy and really adds value to the individual?
I think the best example is the radiology. So radiology was decided, and correct me if my facts are wrong here, but it was like, no, AI is going to be able to do radiology because it'll be able to see the images, and now even from the images, it can tell your ancestry, because it's just so much training data. It's seen all these things. It learns who the patient is, and, you're not going to need, we don't need radiologists anymore, so people stop studying radiology. And what's there a shortage of now of? Radiology. Why? I'll give my example. I went for an MRI and couple, and I've got something in my back, and the decision is surgery or try and do physio, bio, etc. to try and recover. Even if the AI gives me the factually correct answer of surgery on my back or recovery, I don't want to have this conversation with a machine. I want to have this with a human that can
can know
people
you.
talk about know, but the AI will know you, but it cannot feel you. It cannot feel the emotions on your face, okay, in a way that is a human thing. And, so I'm now doing the non-surgical route first because I trust the person that is now becoming a client, because we had a conversation, a human conversation, over voice notes, etc. And it's amazing that now I was like, oh, no, radiology, you don't go study that, and now we have a shortage. So for me, it's not going to replace jobs. I think if you just look at history, I love history, but I'm a businessman. But I always love history. And why? Because I think it can often tell you what's happening in the future just by looking at the past. So I was showing you the graph across history, when they invented the printing press in the 1400s. I don't know, all scribes, the loss of jobs, created one of the biggest literacy booms, and therefore came out of the Middle Ages, and you just repeat steam engine, muscle power, and then industrial revolution, So all of these things, jobs are going to change fundamentally. And I think the fear is because people don't understand the technology a lot. As I said, the exposure to it is very limited in either, one or two ways. And they know there's going to be change. When you work with this technology and it is so revolutionary, I think people know things are going to change. But what does a human fear the most? Unknown, right? And that unknown, I think, is what's unsettling people. And it's that unknown that when I sit with the client that I try and at least give them some sort of grounding. So I start with the history of AI, that it's 75 years old, from the 50s, British scientist. The first chatbot was 1966. There's nothing new. What's changed a lot is that it needs compute, the big blob, as Dario talks, right? And the data, the digitalization of all our lives. Like when I'm trying to take on clients now, yes, the data's all over, but it's there. As long as I can get it in, it will know them, but it doesn't feel them, if I can say it like that. But to get the value you need, it's the training, and again, I'm not the most technical, but it has the new model from Anthropic's 10 trillion parameters, so 10 trillion weights. And I think the simple way I describe it is as it goes through, the different levels, which is, off our human brain, we try to replicate it. When you touch something, it's hot, cold, and one of those hot's fire, one of the cold's fire. And that's doing the same thing. And the hallucination is just, it thinks that's the most correct answer, But when you give it all your data and you point it, and you're literally writing, I wrote SOPs and warehouses and for truck drivers, that's all you feel like I'm doing now is that, but the LLM writes them, but I have like a constitution. And one of the things is banned words, which is the slop. You may not say this. It still says it. And that's where it starts feeling like a human, because I'm like, it is not a human. It is a machine.
Yes.
But the best way you can think about working with it is if you had a new employee, you would give it your SOPs, and that's, your data. This is how we work. This is what we do. This is what I want you to do. This is what I don't want you to do. So every time you prompt it, and that's one of the advantages I think of Claude, is has the Claude.md, which is every single prompt gets this and who it is and where's my data and what I want you to do and what I don't want you to do. So a lot of things when I go into business is you connect your Gmail. If you don't want, don't connect it. But if there is business, but try and separate it.
But I want to
Yeah.
challenge you, Martin, and I want to try and keep this because in my mind, the businesses need, and the people who listen to the show need growth. They need rands going up and rands costs going down. Practically, for the typical business in South Africa, who's got a little CRM or a CRM and an ERP and staff running around trying to service customers and or sell products, where do they go? Well, what do they do for us to grow this economy?
Okay, but let's get back to the analogy of the vehicle, right? So are we talking about a canoe or are we talking about a dinky little bicycle?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about radiology, you're not talking about LLMs. That's machine learning. And I think that the truth is, and I know the radiology is almost an example in the other direction because it's saying, there was a lot of kind of spooky talk, this is terrible, this is going to take your jobs. And okay, it hasn't materialized. But I think that with the expansion of machine learning, that's where the joy lies, that's where the value lies. So that is the farmer who can get a drone overhead to do a soil analysis or a count of livestock, because that's a machine learning algorithm. That's digital pathology, where we take slides, scanned slides of biopsy tissue, and instead of a human pathologist going through that slowly, we do that at speed. Now, the pathologists are still there and safe, and we have way too few pathologists, and it's an industry it's a service under massive pressure in the country. So, and on the continent as well, of course, the rest of the continent. So, the more the better. I think there's a lot of that. From where I sit, and of course, I'm not in the commercial field, I do not see yet massive wins coming with the use of large language models. Maybe that'll come, I don't know, but I don't see that. Traditionally, we used to say that automation ought to take away three things: jobs that are dirty, dull, or dangerous. Right, so if you can give me a bot that can go down in the mines and that you don't have humans in there, I think that's probably a good thing. Okay, now there is a question but what about the miners' jobs? Happy to talk about that, but that's not a great job. That's a job that you do because you can't do anything else, or that's not what somebody aspires necessarily to do, and that's not disrespecting the job or the person. It's saying, can we not find something better? Okay, where are the solutions? Well, the first solutions, if we're going to talk big picture, is just fix education in the country. Our education system is terrible. And we can talk all these highfalutin, beautiful ideas in automation, but if we don't fix education, we're fixing nothing. So let's think about a pyramid. There's, let's call it AI literacy. Below that, there's digital literacy. But below that, there's just bog standard literacy. We haven't got that yet. I'm happy to listen to people talk about the need for reindustrialization in the country, and maybe we should need tariff barriers or all of that. I'm game for those debates, but we don't fix education, none of this happens. Do we implement? And that's what I think someone like Rhys is looking at is, what can we automate, and what if this is a prediction problem? What if this is a pattern that I can help you see in your data, that a human, it's the dull of the dirty, dull, and dangerous. Yeah. That yes, a human can do it, but it would take them this amount of time. I can automate that for you. There's value in there because there's a saving. In the sort of jiggery pokery of the magic of just LLMs as such, I think it's a moot point.
But maybe, like you say, some of the value is I don't have to spend 5 hours doing this, so I might not make more money, but I get to go play some golf.
But do people do that? Because that's interesting. I look at my own life where I use it. For instance, normally, if I had to do discovery with a team, discovery still needs to happen. That's an hour or two, whatever the case might be. I then had to go back and type out a proposal. I had a template or something, but it still had to. Now I take a transcript of that call based on the skills that I've got in Claude. It creates a very, very good proposal that I just quickly scan through to make sure it's done. And it's probably overwriting stuff I probably wouldn't have written. And what's the customer's receiving that, probably taking my proposal into his LLM, asking, is this a good price and a quote? I'm just wondering practically if somebody would be able to start the dull stuff. The typical business of South Africa is a services business. Unfortunately, I'm making a manufacturing product. It's not growing that fast. So most are service-orientated businesses. Where do you see it happening?
I think
you said CEO and finance, no?
Yeah, I hired implement, but I think the two important points here for me is education and automation. And I was talking to a customer, and business is growing, and a lot of what I'm doing is just training, right? Just making people understand what they need to understand about the technology to add value in their business, And it's not me coming with a product, which is also, I was saying to you earlier, why it's difficult to sell, because I don't have buy this and this is what it can do for you. I will make you understand the technology, and yes, it comes with a license and everything, but I'll make you understand the technology because I don't know your data. I don't know your business. I don't know where it's going to add value, I was sitting with one figure, and eventually said, okay, no, Rhys, I'll give you the 2 days. Because I said, just give me 2 days, and after 2 days, generally you would have got it, and then we'll have a commercial discussion. And he said, I feel like, I don't understand it, but my mom, she's 88 years old, and I just keep telling her, just use the banking app, because then you won't have to keep going in. And I said, it's exactly like that. Like, just use it, but use it in the way that I'll teach you. So actually, a lot of what I'm doing in a way is just training people, not taking MRT and all of that, just how as a business person, what I've taken, what you need to understand so that you can use the models, tools in a way that will add value. Mm. And the second thing about employment is, I was even saying, now I'm bringing in people, obviously hiring people, and they're like, Rhys, one of the reasons I brought you in was so I can grow but not have to keep employing so many people, and now you're employing people. So there's this paradox now, but I thought I was going to take all the jobs, but now Rhys is starting to employ people.
Yes.
And one of the best implementations, they say, of AI in a company was JP Morgan, and they hired 3,000 software engineers. And if you listen, all product is gone in software, and software engineers have been gone. I think you're going to need more of them, just like the radiologists. And you talk about, pathology and things. Well, all the grunt work or dirty work is going to be done, but you'll need that human connection. And you'll need someone to understand what the technology has done to a person who understands their business so that they can connect these two. And I feel like a lot of that is just what I'm doing, because I come from business, but I did a very brief course, but I have a brother who's very deep into it. Yeah. And so we have these conversations, and then trying to take that layman's term to a person, But I have a one-pager that says AI does not equal automation.
Yes.
Because people think I'm going to go to it, click a button, and it's going to do my work. I've never worked harder. And, I worked for corporate for 16 years, and I have never worked harder. And they're calling it AI brain fry because of how much it generates, and because I'm having to learn to completely change. But I don't have to build presentations anymore. Yes. I don't have to I have to check it. But I have skills. You talk about skills. One is to grill me. So it fills in the gaps of the data. Anything it's not sure of, it grills me. And, Matt Pocock designed the school, but I've kind of adapted it from development into business. And then another one is roast AI. So it's amazing. And again, I'm not technically too inclined, but if an LLM kind of knows it's going to be marked at the end, we often see it behave differently if it just knows, give me an answer quick. It as it goes through. And what's even amazing, I have a skill that it checks it with other models. And now that it knows that its competitor is going to check it, it's just that much more robust in terms of it doing its own checks before it hands you the output, because it knows that its output is going to be marked. Yes. And that's where, again, I don't technically know, but it's kind of the same with us. If we know we're going to be marked on something we're going to do, yes, we generally put more effort into it. We think about it deeper. If we I'm just going to hand this piece of paper, and no one It'll just be a one-on-one, so you will see it, and then, if you don't have a problem, you can tell me you don't have a problem. But if you know, no, I'm going to give this to a board, and the board's going to mark it and come back to me. And that's where these models get fascinating in one way, and really good output for business owners, because now you have something that adds value. But on the philosophical side or human side, like, why are these models behaving differently? But I think it's, and again, to the experts, but because we modeled them on ourselves, right? We modeled them on our data, so they behave like we taught them.
Yeah.
Would you say that part of the trick for someone in your position is that you almost have to go against the marketing? What I mean is that the tech companies are promising us magic. They're saying, this is going to revolutionize all of that. And when you're at the coalface, what you actually want to tell is no. So because are we seeing that the South African economy is growing? No. Are we seeing that the global economy is, even at the level of population growth? No. Are we seeing that the global, and if we take out the investment in AI, are we seeing productivity in the world go up? No. Okay. Are we seeing that coders have more free time? No, quite the contrary. So it's almost the opposite. So where it works is in not the rule, but in the exception, and it's where you have measured, careful implementation. It's where people don't buy the myth of, just add AI and it's good, because that's nonsense. So it's almost as if those that buy in are those that are not, listening to the marketing noise and go, okay, well, I've got a very specific problem and I understand this problem fundamentally. And there's a part of this that is pattern recognition. Can we bring in more efficiencies? And someone like you then evaluates that and says, yes, you can, or, no, sorry, pass, or yes, you can, and you build this thing, and then that works. So there's a kind of a robust engagement. But it feels like an interesting tension, because it's not that kind of walking on the street and going, line up, I'm going to give you AI, and it's going to go, because we know that's just not true.
Listen, we need to start landing the plane. I'm busy reading Bono's book, The Stories of Surrender, one from U2. And he says that when they started the band, they said, we can't change the world, but we can change the world in us. Now, as an older man, knowing his history, he's saying, I've learned that I can change the world, but I can't change the world in me. And I'm wondering with this technology, what we can change with it, and can it change the world in us? Should it? And will it really change? And I think Martin too, and that's what you mentioned. It's not really changing the world as much as we hoping for it, or is it? And maybe that's just the last piece, that 5 minutes that we can. Karin?
I think the one thing is timeline, and Bono's a great example, because at one point in life he said this and another. And, there's that, I don't know who it was, but one of the MIT, I think, professors, predicts, I think, 12 ways that it will end with AI. But that could be 100 years, 150, 200. Some of them are disastrous, some of them are utopia. But I think when we talk business, for me, as a brand new startup, it's getting cash flow in the next 3, 6, 12 months to get through the 2-year failure rate of most businesses. So I think timeline is often when people are answering things like, are you talking now?
Yes.
Or are you talking 5 years time? Or are you talking 10 years time? So I often think, Elon Musk has a thing that we should just pay a social wage, but I feel like he's always thinking, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years.
Yes.
When I'm talking about the examples I have is like now.
Yes.
I'm thinking now, how do I add value now? And for me, it's actually, I don't build the product, they building the product, and that's where I think the fear is also coming with software companies. Oh, but now the companies can build, yes, but they can vibe code, they can build, even the solar app, it's running my house and another one. I need my brother and a software engineer to make sure it's safe, to put it into production. That's not something a vibe coder can do. But, it was interesting you're saying, no, the customer may saw the patterns. The customer doesn't see the patterns, but if you feed the AI its data, the AI sees the patterns in their business and tells them. So the use case was really good. It was an importer who sells, we said the service, right? So they're importing products and then distributing it, and something I did in my previous roles. And, you order now, it arrives in 3 months, and then it takes 3 to 6 months to sell. And that's just great because it's forecasting, right? And I said to him, kept saying to him, no, please, you need to use it. And eventually, I'll do it for free, and then, you pay me back, whatever it is. And now he's sitting with it and telling him, don't buy the yellow shoes. So it wasn't, even though I could kind of understand his business and saying it's really good at this kind of thing where it can predict for you and it will see things you can't see. He doesn't see it, but he sees the value because now he sees an inventory. It tells him you have 500,000 Rand worth of yellow shoes that you haven't unsold. So definitely don't order yellow shoes.
Yes.
And for him, he never made a connection with color, with rugby or hockey shoes. That connection or pattern wasn't there for him, but the money is. And
Interesting.
I think that's when it's going to be really difficult to measure the economic growth of AI. And it's something when you go and I'm saying, well, you spend X with me, you should get X plus more, because then, it's the way I'm inside the business, it's a justification.
Yeah.
But even with clients I've been 6 or 7 months, they're like, well, I can't live without it now because I'm making all my decisions. It's just with me. It's doing all my PowerPoints. It's doing all the grunt work. So I can't put a value to it, but I can't work without this tool. And I think email would be the same, right? If you just go back to the old technology, cell phones, what is the cell phone worth to you? What is the email worth to you? Can't really put a value. Okay, take it away. No, you can't take that away.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's going to be difficult. And I also think, like, for me, I'm very much, I need to solve my business. I need to make sure it's cash flow. Like, I'd love to solve South Africa's unemployment, but I think I'll do that maybe when I'm Bono's age and have Bono's money, and give back to society. But right now it's more like, but again, ethically, I want to make sure that when I do that, I'm not disadvantaging someone or, so it's like, okay, I want to do this, but I need to do it ethically. But yeah, I must say, if I start thinking about how to solve South Africans' problems, I don't think I'd get to my business.
No.
And my kids wouldn't,
Yeah.
But
yeah, I agree.
and I think just to end, I watched Rory Sutherland, and he's a great marketer. And he said that, the problem with our business is we're making so efficient on things that people want. So you have the feedback and everything. What we've lost is educating or showing people things that they don't know about that they actually want. And that, I think, is when you sit with a client, one, they don't know what they want because they don't know the technology, and you have to kind of show them to it. But I also think as we go through it, you change about changing your world, we need to think, what do I actually want? And it's very difficult when you look at the neural network. You've got the inputs and outputs. We all think step 1, step 2, especially businessmen. Do this, do that, do that. What do you want? And it's not just about money, right? It's about, can I get more time back? Can I spend more time with my kids? And I was like, hey, what do you want? And you're like,
I don't know.
I don't know, right? And it's this hard question. It's like, okay, I know I want these 3 things, but what do you want for your kids? What do you want for your future in 3 years in your marriage? It's quite intimidating to have to write down everything you want because you don't know. So I think this technology is making people think, hopefully, about what do they really want.
Yes.
As soon as you give it a goal, it will start recognizing patterns of how to, from other people, as you said, the collective, to how to get to that goal. But you have to, in your mind, define it.
Anything you guys want to think you should have added to this conversation that difficult to wrap all of this into one conversation?
Your last point. Yeah, I agree with the idea of thinking beyond just what clients want. There's maybe apocryphal. I don't know if is it Ford that said if they asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse or something that idea. Exactly. But okay, you were talking about the world outside and the world within. I think that. I don't think I think it's a red herring to say, will it change the world? If we're talking about AI writ large or, machine learning or large language models, I think we have to accept that it is. And there's opportunity in there, and there are challenges in there, immediately and long term. And I think the trick is to keep your eye on both. So yes, we need a good national policy and we need good regulation, and we need entrepreneurs to say, okay, now I've got new tools. What can I fix with these new tools, and be creative around that? So we need all of that and have vision. But we also need to say, what about water? And what about electricity? And what about education? And what about inequality and poor governance? Because it's messy and it's unsexy and it's really intimidating. But we need people to not say the answer is we're going to wait until AI comes and we'll throw AI at that, because that's nonsense. We have to be actively fighting on those fronts and saying, well, there are real problems right now and real harms right now that we should be solving. And it's that ability to look at the immediate and be honest and look at the long term and hopefully work on solutions.
I wish we could have taken more hours on this. We might circle back to this in future. But thank you for your inputs. I'm always happy that we don't have to have a specific result, like you say. Just creating awareness of people who's listening to this. And really appreciate your time.